The primary purpose of the project charter is to get formal authorization to proceed with project work. However, there are few secondary benefits of developing the project charter. It establishes high-level project scope. So when detailed scope planning starts, the project charter, as an input, provides the framework to write the plan and define the project scope. It also provides direction for schedule, cost, and risk management planning. Some say no charter, no project, meaning a project has nothing to stand on without a project charter, because the charter is the anchor point. Everything done on the project is ultimately linked to the charter and fulfills the objectives defined in the charter. The project charter is usually prepared as a document with several pieces of information. The key ones are as follows. Purpose. The purpose of the project answers the question, why to do this project? The purpose is explained by giving brief background information and then the justification of why this project is needed. This section helps the stakeholders understand why the project is being undertaken. A clear purpose helps in writing the project objectives. Objectives. The objectives of the project should be listed. Most projects have one objective or one key objective and some ancillary objectives. Objectives must be measurable, otherwise the project can run into trouble. One way to ensure objectives are measurable is to come up with success criteria. What needs to happen to say objectives have been met? The criteria cannot be based on perception. It has to have metrics associated so that these are measurable. I conducted a PMP course for an organization that is into space robotics. They worked mostly on NASA projects. But once they were asked by Steven Spielberg to do a project, the project objective was to build a lifelike dinosaur. What is meant by lifelike? How to measure lifelike? What should the robot dinosaur have that it will be called lifelike? Lifelike is all perception. It cannot be measured. The project team spent the next 3 months defining the word lifelike. They wrote a whole list of specifications as the success criteria. When specifications were met, it meant project objectives achieved. Stay away from defining objectives with words like awesome, great, pretty, and other such words, unless measurable criteria can be established to gauge those. Then roles and authority levels. Who is the project manager? Who is the sponsor? What is the authority each role will have? Then comes high-level project description. This section provides information about the project scope at a very high level. It will identify the boundary so that it is clear what is the project's area of influence and working. Key deliverables. If some deliverables are already defined, then those are presented here. The deliverables are properly created in the define scope process, which happens later. Summary milestone schedule. When key moments will happen on the project. When are those? When phases will be completed. So we have to put that information. High level budget. How much is the total approved budget for the project? If the budget has been approved by phases, then that can be mentioned here. Also, refer to funding sources. If the project will use multiple sources of funding, then that needs to be identified. Key stakeholders. Not all stakeholders are known at this stage, but it is expected that key ones have been recognized and consulted for writing the project charter. Those should be listed in this section. project approval requirements. Who will decide that the project is successful and then sign off on it? What needs to happen for this? Project exit criteria. This includes the conditions that are to be met to cancel or close the project. The project manager will need to access several documents beside consulting the stakeholders to collect all this information that will go into the project charter. Here are the major sources of information. Business case. This is the key document referred to when writing the project charter. The business case has recommended an option with a high-level time and cost estimate. It will also show the key resources required and the overall project risks that were known at that time. So it provides a good chunk of information for starting to write the project charter. The business case is usually a restricted internal document, so it may not be exposed to the seller organization. Agreements. In the case of a seller organization taking on a project for a buyer, the contract signed between them is an excellent guideline. The contract will have most of the information. There are other agreements that may influence charter, whether the project is taken up by the internal team or a seller. Service level agreement. Memorandum of Understanding, MOUs, and long-term maintenance contracts are the common agreements that will be considered for developing the charter. Organizational Process Assets, OPAs. The charter also identifies if there are any guidelines from Project Management Office and project charter templates used in the organization. Also, review the project archives and look at documents from previous projects. It is a great source of information. Check organizational databases like Lessons Learned database. Now, with all this information to be put into the charter, a natural question is, how long the charter should be? The length of the charter will be based on the template that is in use in the organization. It also depends on organizational guidelines about documentation and the culture of the organization. In one organization, the charter for a $2 million project was 2 pages long. In another organization, the charter for $20,000 project was 15 pages long. What will happen if these project charters are switched? The first organization's response is, make it concise. Second organization's response is, not enough information provided. So, summarizing what I presented, the project charter is written to get formal authorization to proceed with work. Length is defined by the culture and practices in the organization, but the charter should provide the purpose and objectives of the project and provide other information including high-level scope, deliverables, key milestones, and budget. Best sources of this information are the business case, agreements, and organizational process assets.